What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rambling Men Sports Podcast. This is episode number 10. Believe it or not, we are now in the double digits. Unfortunately, as you can see, James isn't here this week. He said he had a lot going on and told me he wasn't going to be able to do the podcast. I told him, don't worry about it. I'd do it by myself. He said he should be back next week. I'm really hoping he is because I hate doing this by myself. I really prefer having a co-host, if I'm being honest. He did send his answers to the poll questions, though. So at least we have that. Sort of a busy news week. I'm not going to keep you very long, or going to try not to keep you very long. But let's get right down to it. The first topic is a news story that came over the weekend. University of Arizona men's basketball head coach Sean Miller caught on FBI wiretap discussing a $100,000 payment to lock up a recruit. Some of the details. Report came from ESPN. University of Arizona Board of Regents met Thursday and said Miller will remain the head coach. And, of course, Miller denies all the allegations. So this is obviously pretty big news. If you've been following, this has to do with the FBI, Adidas, Nike shoe scandal. Like I said, this is big news. This scandal first gained traction last summer, and when Louisville got caught up in it, and the school, I guess, did some investigating and fired Rick Pitino. And it kind of went away for a little bit, and this is kind of the first time we've heard it since then, I feel like. And over the weekend, news broke that a lot of schools have been mentioned in this scandal, including Alabama, Arizona, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, LSU, Maryland, Michigan State, North Carolina, NC State, Texas, Wichita State, Washington, and there's even more. I just chose those few. And then a little bit after this report, there was another report from ESPN that said the FBI had wiretaps of Arizona men's basketball head coach Sean Miller discussing, as the headline said earlier, a $100,000 payment to lock up a recruit. Hard to tell if this report is true or not. I've seen nothing, I guess, directly from the FBI. Maybe they're just trying to gather all the information first before releasing it. But everything I've read about the scandal says that the schools that are most involved with the most trouble that are involved in this scandal, aside from Louisville, is Arizona and Kansas. We haven't heard a ton from Kansas, but this pretty much shows Arizona, I wouldn't say is deeply involved, but there's definitely some smoke there. So it's hard to tell if Sean Miller knew anything about this. He denied the allegation. Who knows if the University of Arizona heard this wiretap and said that doesn't prove anything, which is why he's remaining the head coach. Or they're just doing the innocent until proven guilty, waiting it out, which I am a fan of. And I'm going to assume that's what they're doing. I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But like I said, I believe in innocent until proven guilty. I have no problem with Arizona saying Sean Miller will remain the head coach the rest of the season. I'm assuming that is until more information comes out, because if it is true that he's involved in this and was caught on tape discussing a payment to a recruit, he's done. He's going to be fired. Maybe not even have another job. Who knows? That doesn't take away from the fact this is a massive scandal. While I believe, like I said, until innocent, until proven guilty, I do believe in the phrase where there's smoke, there's fire, and I do think that something fishy is going on at not just Louisville, Arizona. I mean, Louisville is, I think it's pretty much, I don't know about proven, but there's stuff going on there. I think Arizona's involved. I do think Kansas is involved. As much as I like Bill Self, and I'd hate for him to go down with a ship like that. And then of those other schools I mentioned, I think there's definitely something going on at, I'd say Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan State, North Carolina, and Texas for sure. Maybe Washington. Alabama, I don't really know. They kind of got good. I shouldn't say good, but pretty good pretty decent out of nowhere. But real quick, to those saying, I just want to say this, to those saying that the NCAA is responsible for this investigation, I really urge them to just shut up. Don't get me wrong, there's a problem. There's tons of problems with the NCAA, but let's not kid ourselves. There's always going to be a black market with these boosters that are going to slide money under the table to get recruits to come to their schools. It's going to happen whether the NCAA has more restrictions on this process or not. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just leave the NCAA alone. We bash them enough. But anyway, like I said, I think this is going to be a massive scandal, probably the biggest in college basketball. Like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think something big is coming down the pipe. And when it's all said and done, I do think it's going to rock the world of college basketball. So this brings us to a poll question. How many more college basketball coaches do you think will be implicated in this FBI recruiting scandal? James actually is actually voting for 5 or more. And our options here, for those that can't, obviously, since y'all don't know, the options are 1 to 2, 3 to 4, or 5 and up. And James voted 5 and up, and I got half of mine to agree with him. Like I said earlier, I think Rick Pitino's already gone. So there's one coach that's been implicated. Sean Miller's now implicated. There's 2, and there's more. Kansas, like I said, is apparently involved in this. I don't know about deeply, but they are very much involved. So I think Bill Self's in trouble. Kentucky, I think John Calipari's in trouble. Maryland, I think Turgeon, I don't know, Mark Turgeon is the head coach at Maryland. I think he's in trouble. I think Michigan State, I think Tom Izzo's in trouble. North Carolina, I do think Roy Williams is in trouble. And Texas, I think Shaka Smart's in trouble. So there's at least 5 or 6 that I just mentioned. So I think James is very much spot on, and I agree with him. I think there's going to be at least 5 or more head coaches in college basketball that are going to be implicated in this scandal. On to our next topic, the NFL. In the NFL, Kansas City last week, this actually happened almost right after I uploaded last week's podcast, but Kansas City trades cornerback Marcus Peters to the Los Angeles Rams. Details of the trade: Chiefs get cornerback Marcus Peters in 2018, 6th-round pick. Chiefs trade away cornerback Marcus Williams in 2018, 6th-round pick to the Rams, and receive a 2018 4th-round pick and a 2nd-round pick next year. And obviously, we said this for the Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith. I'm sorry, not Kirk Cousins, but the Alex Smith trade to Washington. This can't be official until the new league year begins March 14th, so there's plenty of time for either of these teams to back out. Obviously, this was a very surprising trade. I think Peters is easily a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. I'd argue he's even the 2nd best in the NFL behind Jalen Ramsey. You could argue even the best. I wouldn't dispute it. On paper, he's a guy that I would say all 32 teams want on their roster. But after thinking about it, I think I kind of understand why the Chiefs would want to get rid of him. The first reason being he's going to be a free agent next year. Maybe Kansas City, maybe he wanted a ton. They knew Peters would want a ton of money, and the Chiefs said, we're not going to pay you that much. We might as well get some value for you now. Second reason, I've always got a vibe from him. I'm not trying to smear the guy, but I've got a vibe that he's kind of a head case in the locker room. I know he had the incident last year on the field where he threw a flag into the stands after a bad call. And I think even before he came out for the draft, he was considered one of the top corners, but he kind of fell in the draft, I think, because of off-the-field issues. But maybe the Chiefs view him as someone they could do without in the locker room. But either way, the Rams got an absolute stud at cornerback, which is huge because they had a need for a corner even before this offseason because they had 2 cornerbacks who were about to be free agents, Trumaine Johnson and LaMarcus Joyner. So adding Peters is obviously a huge boost for the Rams defense, and he's going to be a real playmaker in the back end of that defense. As for, I just said their names, Johnson and Joyner, what does that mean for them? I think that could be that they're moving on from the Rams. But with Peters coming in, I'd really try to bring one of them back. Specifically Johnson, he's a really talented corner, and I think him and Peters paired with each other at cornerback, I think that'd be the best duo and probably in the NFL. It's hard to think of anything off the top of my head that would surpass those players. But yeah, Rams are getting a great player. We'll see how it goes within next season with Peters. Poll question: which team won the Marcus Peters trade, Kansas City Chiefs or the LA Rams? James voted for the LA Rams. I 100% agree. I'm usually in the camp of the team that got the player won the trade. And that's what the Rams did. They got the player, so I think that they won the trade. But I do think the Chiefs got a pretty good haul for him, a 4th-round pick this year and a 2nd-round pick next year. Pretty decent haul. Like we said when they traded away Alex Smith, they don't have a 1st-round pick, so that adding a 2nd, 3rd-round pick then was huge, and then now a 2nd, 4th-round pick is pretty big too. Help makes up for the fact they don't have that 1st-round value this upcoming draft. Some other NFL offseason headlines. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Some other headlines. Roger Goodell expected to fine Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones millions of dollars as a result for Jones' public feud with the NFL last year. Jones is expected to appeal. First of all, what a petty power move this is. I know last year was not a good year for the NFL, and Jones was very critical of Roger Goodell. But what a petty move to fine him a bunch of money. I guess I do kind of get it now that I think about it. If you think about it, if you worked, for your employer, which shouldn't be an if there, but you're working for your employer and you smear them, you probably be fired in the real world, and he's getting away with a fine. He can't be fired. Obviously, he owns the team. I think I don't know if you can out an owner. I don't know if you can do that, but it seems like a petty move to me. Other news, Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. says he wants at least $20 million per year in his next contract. If I'm the New York Giants, I'm already moving on. This dude is too much trouble, and there's no way in hell I would pay a wide receiver that much money. Jaguars and Blake Bortles agreed to a 3-year, $54 million extension. When I first saw it, I thought that was kind of a lucrative deal. But then I saw it was just only about $18 million, which is a good chunk of change. But considering some of the other quarterbacks that are getting long-term deals, I think they got him pretty cheap. And he had a good year last year. So I think that's a good decision by Jacksonville. Maybe they paid him a little bit too much, but I think that's kind of fair. It's cheaper than the average quarterback contract, which is about $20 million, maybe a little bit more. So they got him a little bit cheaper than that. I feel like that's a fair deal. Jaguars cut running back Chris Ivory. That's not really surprising with the emergence of Leonard Fournette. Jaguars extend head coach Doug Marrone, executive VP of operations Tom Coughlin, and general manager Dave Caldwell contracts. That shouldn't be very surprising. I think Jacksonville had obviously a very good year. Keep those guys around. I think keeping those guys around is going to be huge. They had a busy week, obviously. Another team, Minnesota Vikings, say they will not franchise tag quarterback Case Keenum. That's not really surprising. The franchise tag for quarterback is about about $20 million, maybe a little bit more. Keenum is not worth that kind of money. Another Vikings quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, is rumored to become a free agent. I mean, that's not really surprising with him having a knee injury a few years ago and hasn't played since. They're not going to sign him to a deal right now. They're going to wait and see what happens in the free agent market, which is the very next headline. Rumors are swirling that Vikings are going to be players for Kirk Cousins. As a Packers fan, I do not want that to happen. I do not want him to go to Minnesota. I think he could do a lot of damage with that Vikings roster. But I don't think they're going to get him. I saw something today. They're projected to have about $42 million in cap room. And I just don't think that's going to be enough. I don't think they're going to outbid Denver, Cleveland, or the Jets. Panthers cut running back Jonathan Stewart, who is the franchise's leading rusher. Again, not really surprising. Stewart's been there a long time. He's kind of getting up there in age. They got Christian McCaffrey behind him. They're moving on. Makes a ton of sense. And then more rumors that Miami could trade wide receiver Jarvis Landry, who they just franchise tagged. According to NFL's Ian Rappaport, the Dolphins have granted Landry and his representative permission to seek and facilitate a trade. I do actually remember James told me that before the rumors even started. I remember him texting me saying that the Dolphins were going to trade Landry after they franchise tagged him. I didn't believe it, and now here it is. Looks like he's going to be dealt this offseason. Buffalo signs former Indianapolis corner Vontae Davis. Browns, Giants both announced they're listening to offers about trading the number 1 and number 2 overall picks. Guys, don't fall for it. This is a smokescreen. Trust me. They're going to keep those picks. They're going to draft a quarterback at those spots. And then lastly, NFL awards the 32 compensatory picks for the 2018 NFL draft to 15 teams. The Bengals, the Cowboys, and the Packers all lead the way with 4 compensatory picks each. Next topic is the 2018 Winter Olympics. Just wrapped up. Some of the Team USA headlines over the last few days. The men's curling team won the gold medal over Sweden, just the second all-time medal in curling ever, and first gold medal for USA in men's curling. That happened. I tried to stay up late to watch that. It was Friday, really basically Friday evening, but it was 1 o'clock in the morning, so it was technically Sunday evening. I tried to stay up to watch that, but I heard curling takes like 3 hours to finish, and I said, no way, I'm not staying up to watch that. But I did record it. I watched it the next day. Awesome to see. Very, very, very boring sport. Like my friend said, it might as well be watching paint dry. And then Kyle Mack earns a silver in the men's big air snowboarding event. Awesome. USA continues to dominate in snowboarding. Final medal count, Norway leads the way with 39 total medals. Germany in second with 31. Canada in third at 29. That's kind of surprising. They were supposed to be the favorites this year to have the most medals. USA in fourth at 23, and the Netherlands in fifth at 20. So this leads us to a poll question. Which country was the most disappointing at the 2018 Winter Olympics? Canada with their 29 medals, Russia with 17 medals, or the United States with 23 medals? In my opinion, I think James voted for Russia. I completely agree. Russia. Canada, 29 medals is still a pretty good showing. They should have had more. But Russia, think about Russia for a second. It's winter. Like Canada, it's winter all the time. They should be doing better in the Olympics. Now, granted, they did have that Russia doping scandal. So maybe some of their athletes couldn't compete this year, and they had to send basically like a B team over here. But come on, they ought to be doing. The United States, we are a warm weather country. We shouldn't be out medaling Russia in the Olympics. But we did, and I think they easily were the most disappointing. On to the NBA. Some key injuries. Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard both could miss significant playing time because of injuries. Jimmy Butler has a meniscus injury, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, but should be back for the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard sitting out with a quad injury, despite reportedly being medically cleared to play. Basic question, does this change the landscape of the Western Conference? I don't think it does at all. These injuries will affect their teams. I think without Butler, Minnesota might slide a little bit, and without Leonard, I definitely think San Antonio will take a step back. But it doesn't change the landscape of the Western Conference at all. The West runs through Golden State and Houston this year. The injuries to Butler and Leonard, like I said, will hurt their teams, but those teams weren't going anywhere, even with a healthy Butler or Leonard. So this brings us to a poll question. How much do the injuries to Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard affect their respective teams? James voted very much, and the options are very much, a little, not much, not at all. I'll agree with James once again. I'll say very much. I'll take that back. Minnesota, I'll say a little bit. But San Antonio, I'll say losing Kawhi Leonard will hurt a lot. He's basically San Antonio's team. They really don't have much else behind him. Minnesota at least has Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. They'll still be the 3 or 4 seed in the West without Butler. And this brings us to updated NBA power rankings. So at number 1, I have the Houston Rockets. Shoot, I just realized I wanted to go from 10 to 1, but I'll go from 1 to 10 this week. I have no problem with it. So the Houston Rockets come in at number 1 for me. I'm sticking with them just because they still have the best record in the NBA, and they've won 10 straight games. The Golden State Warriors are my number 2. I have to put the Warriors at number 2 solely because of their record. But them and the Rockets competing for the Western Conference title is going to be fun to watch. Toronto Raptors come in at number 3. Toronto is still the hottest team in the East right now. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. Number 4, I have the Boston Celtics. This has been a completely different team since the All-Star break. They've won 4 in a row and look like the team from a few weeks ago. Number 5, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. We probably got a little too excited about Cleveland after the trade deadline. This team has started to struggle since then. At number 6, I have Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm not sure I would have had them any higher if they had Jimmy Butler. But without Jimmy Butler, this team is going to take a slight step back. But like I said, they still have Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, and a great head coach in Tom Thibodeau. At number 7, I actually have the New Orleans Pelicans. If you guys haven't been paying attention, Anthony Davis is on a tear, or has been on a tear in February, or was on a tear in February. We're now into March, I forgot. He's averaging 35 points and 13 rebounds per game, and the Pelicans have won 9 of their last 12, including 8 in a row because of him. They're incredibly hot. I think they're now the 5th seed in the West, maybe the 6th. At number 8, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Like I said earlier, this team isn't nearly as good without Kawhi Leonard. And they've lost 7 of their last 10 games. Is that right? No. Yeah, that's right. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games, I'm pretty sure. This team just doesn't feel like it's going to make much noise without Kawhi Leonard, however long he sits out. Number 9, I have the Washington Wizards. They continue to be about around middle of the pack in the East. This is about what they are in the NBA. They're about 9 or 10. They do just enough to keep their heads above water. At number 10, James is going to like this. I do actually have the Philadelphia 76ers cracking my top 10. Philadelphia was actually really hot in February. They were winners of their last 11 games and are now the number 6 seed in the East. So that's not just the 76ers. All Philadelphia sports I read are insanely hot since the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And the NHL trade deadline is the next topic. I have some of the details, some of the big names that were moved. Bruins added veteran depth along the wing by trading for Rick Nash. Sharks add Evander Holyfield. Sharks add Evander Kane to help bolster their offense. Both of those make a ton of sense. The Bruins are a very young team. My Boston Bruins are a very young team. They needed some veteran depth, and Rick Nash is going to do that. The Sharks are in a tough division with the Vegas Golden Knights. They're trying to chase them for the top spot in that division. And the Knights are kind of running away with it because they have a really good offense. The Sharks are kind of middle of the pack. I wrote about it in my blog. They're about 17th in the NHL in goals scored, or goals per game. So adding Kane makes a ton of sense. Try to bolster that offense and get back to competing with the Knights in that division. The other two, Penguins added some depth defensively by acquiring Derek Brassard. That makes a lot of sense. The Penguins, while they're the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, they've also kind of struggled along the blue line, especially this year. And Matt Murray just got hurt. Who knows how long he'll be out. They just gave up 8 goals last night to the my Boston Bruins. So getting some depth on the blue line is going to help a lot. And the Lightning, the best team in the NHL, in terms of points, got a lot better at the trade deadline by trading for defenseman Ryan McDonough. That's huge. The Lightning, I wrote about it on my blog. They have the number 1 offense and like a top 6 defense in terms of goals allowed per game. And McDonough's going to make that even better. The Lightning, I'm having a hard time not seeing them win the President's Trophy now with McDonough in their lineup, which leads us to a poll question. After the NHL trade deadline, which player that was traded will make the biggest impact with their new team? Rick Nash with the Bruins, Evander Kane with the Sharks, Derek Brassard with the Penguins, and Ryan McDonough with the Lightning. James actually voted for Nash. I was surprised he even voted. While James likes hockey, he doesn't really know it that well outside of the Flyers. And even then, I'm not even sure he watches the Philadelphia Flyers that much. But he did vote, and he voted for Rick Nash for my Bruins. And at first I was going to say Ryan McDonough, but after James said Nash, I kind of talked myself into Nash, and I will agree with him. The Lightning are already really good. McDonough is going to help, but I'm not sure it's going to be a huge improvement. He will make a serious impact, though. But I think Nash is going to make a really good impact in Boston. Like I said, that's a really young lineup. They already have one of the best, I would say, top lines in the NHL with Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron when he's healthy, and my boy David Pastrnak. That second line could have used some depth, and they did that by adding Nash. Now they got Nash and young winger Jake DeBrusk on the wings, and then veteran David Krejci in the center. I think that second line is going to be not quite as good, obviously, as the first, but it's going to be one of the better second offensive lines in the NHL. So, another NHL news, the Oakview Group, the prospective owners of Seattle's potential NHL franchise, held its season ticket drive today. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and we said that You're interrupting my podcast, mother. What do you need? Sorry about that. Oh, I want the door closed. Sorry about that. That's my mom. So anyway, what was I saying? We talked about this a few weeks ago. The NHL was going to determine whether or not to add a team in Seattle based on this ticket drive. And Seattle said before the ticket drive that their goal was 10,000 tickets. That's a really good number, I'd say. I think that's a fair number. I would say an NHL game seats about 15 to 20,000 people. And they were shooting for 10,000. And they passed that in 12 minutes, apparently. Yes, they passed their goal in just 12 minutes. They finished with over, I believe, 25,000 deposits. That's incredible. The city of Seattle clearly wants a hockey team. Like we said a few weeks ago, I am all for it. I think that city would be a great hockey town, and it would really help bring back the Seattle Supersonics, which I've been a huge proponent of ever since they left and went to Oklahoma City and became the Thunder. I really hope that this gets Seattle a hockey team, and then later gets the Supersonics back. All right. So that was a alert on my phone that I already knew. So, last few things here. I'm going to recap last week's poll questions. So, first one, even though its men's basketball national title was vacated, do you still consider Louisville to be the 2013 national champions? 83% yes, 17% voted no. That's not really surprising. I think both me and James said yes. Do you think changes to the NBA postseason format are necessary? I think the entire country is in unanimous support of this. Yes. We had 100% yes on this, and I think everybody else who pays attention to the NBA does too. Third one, which country do you think was affected the most by the NHL's decision to not let its players compete in the 2018 Winter Olympics? This was about what I expected. 70% said the USA, which is what I voted for. 30% actually said Canada, which makes sense. With the NHL players, I'd say Canada is an easy gold medal favorite, and they finished with the bronze. So I'd say that's fair. And then 0% voted for Sweden. I thought Sweden would get more votes, but I guess not. And nobody voted for any other countries. Which MLB free agent will make the biggest impact with their new team? This was kind of really interesting and really split way down the middle. 20. There was a tie for first. 29% said JD Martinez. 29% said Shohei Ohtani. A little bit surprising that it was that split, but I would agree. I think JD Martinez with the Red Sox and Shohei Ohtani with the Angels will make the biggest impact with their teams. And then the next two options, 28% voted for Eric Hosmer. A little bit surprising. I know he's a really good player. Feels a little high, though. And then last, I thought for sure this would get more votes, but 14% voted for Yu Darvish with the Cubs. I thought for sure that'd get more votes. He's going to be a big arm in that rotation that already has John Lester and I think Kyle Hendricks. I thought it would get more votes, but apparently people don't see the same thing. And then lastly, which remaining MLB free agent would you want your team to sign? A little bit surprising with this. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But 86% said Jake Arrieta. I guess that's not that surprising. He's a big name over the last few years. He didn't have a great year last year because of injuries, but I feel like he did get hot late, and then that really helped the Cubs get back into the postseason and get to the NLCS. 14% voted for Mike Moustakas, who was my vote last week. And then 0% voted for Jonathan LaCroix and other. So that's about what I expected. I thought it would be between Arrieta and Moustakas. I figured not many people know about Jonathan LaCroix, even though I think he's a very underrated player. But Arrieta coming in at number 1 is not that surprising at all. So that's it for most of the topics. My last thing here is my final thoughts. So this week I got word, and I kept this to myself with most of my friends and family. But I applied to go to grad school in December, and this week I got word that I got accepted. I am going back to my alma mater, WVU, to do it. I couldn't be more excited. Really looking forward to going back home. Living in Morgantown was probably the best experience of my life. And if James were here, I guarantee you, since he's a WVU alum, he'd probably agree with me. But really looking forward to going back to school. Looking forward to grad school. Not much else to say. Just thankful that WVU took another chance on me. I really hope but I'm not going to let them down. Going into the sport management field, which will help me, I think, get out of the journalism field a whole lot. The industry's hit some tough times, and I've suffered because of that, obviously, since I don't have a job now. But anyway, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. And that'll about do it this week. This is a really short podcast. We're going on almost 34 minutes. Tune in next week. That's all I got to say. Hopefully James is back. Like I said, he couldn't be here this week. He had a lot of stuff going on. Really hope he's back. I hate doing this by myself. It's not fair. It's not fair to you guys. I really want you guys to have 2 co-hosts, not just one, and get one opinion. I want you guys to listen to 2 people talk back and forth. But anyway, James should be back next week. I really hope he is. Have a good weekend, everyone.